Hello, welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. I have a few comments I would like to make about a few topics. The first of which is the outbreak of the bird flu epidemic in Bangladesh, India, Asia, and even as far as Great Britain. The bird flu has shown some tendency for cross-species infection and could turn out to be a huge public health nightmare in the coming year. So this is something that needs to have a watchful eye on it. Many tens of thousands of birds have been destroyed in an effort to try to stop the spread of this disease, much the same way as mad cow disease prompted the destruction of cattle not so many years ago. And mad cow disease is something that has not been handled properly, in my opinion, and I doubt that the bird flu will be given the kind of attention that it deserves, but it needs to be watched very closely, as it could turn into a very serious public health issue during the coming year and down the road. As if that were not bad enough, the World Health Organization has identified a Tamiflu-resistant form of the flu, which is in the U.S. and Canada. And what this means is that many people who are vulnerable and susceptible to the flu virus, and I mean in particular the elderly and the young who have been inoculated against it, really have no defense. And this could turn into another public health emergency, because many very vulnerable people are walking around with what they think is a level of protection, but in fact they have none whatsoever. So this could turn into a crisis as well down the road, and I have no doubt that this year is going to be a particularly bad one for the flu. And I also see in the world of economics and technology that Microsoft made a bid for Yahoo in the amount of over $44 billion. What does this mean in the long run? That Microsoft is serious about its encroachment into the digital media arena and into the internet and into the gateway and access of information over the internet. It's being touted by some as a direct attempt at competition with the giant Google, and Google does have its detractors and Google does have its problems, but I think with Microsoft's propensity for a monopoly, that this is something of a trend that I do not like, because it just illustrates more of the tendency of smaller or even larger companies being bought up by even larger, more giant corporations in an effort to try and control the information and access to that information over the internet. And down the road, it will mean that fewer and fewer providers provide either internet service access or access to information that right now is readily and freely available. And you can bet if Microsoft can find a way to control it, they will. And if they can find a way to make a profit out of it, they will. And this can't be good for free speech on the internet and free access to information in the long run. So keep your eye on that. I also saw with some disdain that a high-level member of Al-Qaeda was apparently killed in Pakistan. And it only caused me to have disdain when I read this, because it made me wonder about all the other times we've heard about an Al-Qaeda number 2 or an Al-Qaeda number 3 being dispatched in some raid or counterinsurgency action, whether in Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, or wherever. How many number 2s or number 3s does Al-Qaeda have? Do they have 30 number 2s? 20 number 3s? What is it? I mean, there's got to be some end to this. The only purpose I see being served by this information coming out now is to justify the pumping of more money into a flagging campaign in Afghanistan, and also to keep within the minds of the American public the possibility that U.S. troops will have to go into Pakistan, which may be something that's in the offing. Now, I know that the population in this country is pretty war-weary, but when propaganda like this comes out, it does tend to raise people's hopes, at least those that can be fooled, that there may be an eventual end to the endless war on terror. I have news for you. There is no end. And next week, there will be another number 2 or number 3 of Al-Qaeda either captured or killed. And you'll continue to read about the very same thing in the coming months and years as this campaign continues, without end, unfortunately, and against the wishes of the American people. And finally, the Chans versus Scientology war. I hope this is not just a gimmick or a publicity stunt or some other kind of adolescent scheme. Instead, I hope that it is really actually what it claims to be, and that is an all-out attack against Scientology. I don't have anything against personal Scientologists. What I have against Scientology in general is the fact that it is a huge money-making scheme. I feel sorry for the vast majority of people who end up being destroyed by this so-called religion, by the pressures of having to come up with more money in order to advance through the degrees of the supposed religious hierarchy. Scientology is a sham. Top officials in Scientology, including L. Ron Hubbard, were convicted of fraud many years ago. L. Ron Hubbard went into hiding on international waters in order to avoid capture and imprisonment. And in the U.S., Scientology only got its religious status after having paid off the U.S. government with a substantial sum of money. Many other parts of the world regard Scientology as a cult, and a dangerous one. In Germany, they are particularly resistant to them. And I think this is a good thing, because Scientology ruins lives. And why I think this battle between the Chans and Scientology is potentially very good, because it's about time Scientology gets to experience a little bit of what they have handed out to their enemies and those who have come out as dissenters against them. They need a little dose of their own medicine. Thank you. Good night.